Hello children, how are you? This is Vijaya Balavel. And children, in the previous class we have studied about the dear departed one, that is Mr. Abel Merriweather has come down from the first floor, and by seeing him, his family members, that is Mr. and Mrs. Jordan and Mr. and Mrs. Ben and their daughter Victoria, they were all shocked. And after Abel Merriweather came down, he sat with them and he wanted to talk. That was what we have seen in the last video. Now let us see the part 2 of Dear Departed in this class or in this video. So today our lesson is the Dear Departed 2. Let's move on with the lesson. Children, please look at page number 43. The Dear Departed 2. Abel, what's the matter, little Vicky? He sees Ben and Mrs. Jordan. Hello, what's bring you here? How's yourself, Ben? Then Abel thrusts his hand at Ben, who skips back smartly and retreats with Mrs. Jordan to a safe distance below the sofa. Mrs. Slatter, approaching Abel gingerly. Father, is that you? She pokes him with her hand to see if he is solid. So after coming down, Mr. Abel Merriweather was sitting there and he was asking Vicky. Vicky is none other than Victoria. So what's the matter, Vicky? Why are you afraid? Why are you shocked? Then he sees Ben and Mrs. Jordan. Ben and Mrs. Jordan is Elizabeth. So he looked at his daughter and son-in-law and he asked, how are you, Ben, and what brings you here? Why did you come to this place? And he thrust his hand. That means he was about to give his hand to, like a shake hand. He wanted to give his hand to Mr. Ben. But Mr. Ben was surprised and he was shocked and he was frightened. And he went back to Mrs. Elizabeth and stood there without shaking his hand with Abel Merriweather. And this lady, Elizabeth, came gingerly in the sense, in a very careful way, she came to her father and she poked into his stomach with her finger and like she wanted to check whether he was solid, he was alive or a ghost. And he said, Daddy, is that you? Then see what's the reaction of Mr. Abel Merriweather. Abel, of course it's me. Don't do that, Amelia. What the devil do you mean by this tomfoolery? So he asked, see, why are you shocked? It's me. It's none other than your father. It's me. It's Abel Merriweather. Why are you asking such a question? Such a foolish question. Then, Mrs. Jordan, you took us by surprise, father. Are you keeping quite well? Abel, trying to catch the words. Yeah, what? Mrs. Jordan, are you quite well? Abel, hey, I'm right enough, but for a bit of a headache. Looking at Amelia. Amelia, what the dickens did I do with my new slippers? So when Elizabeth asked her father, like, are you well? Are you doing well? Then he said, no doubt at all. I'm very, very well. I'm quite fine. So don't ask such questions. I just had a bit of headache last night. And apart from that, I'm quite well. Then he turned to Amelia, that is Mrs. Slatter, and he asked, where are my slippers? I didn't find my slippers in my room and where are they? Then Mrs. Slatter, confused, aren't they by her father? So she herself has given those slippers to her husband, that is Mr. Henry, right? So when father asked about his slippers, she was like in a dilemma what to tell, and she was telling to her father, didn't you find them in your room? They are there only, so why didn't you find it? Like that she said that to her father. Then Abel, I don't see them. Observing Henry trying to remove the slippers. Why? You have got them on, Henry. So when he was searching here and there for his slippers, he found Henry was slowly trying to remove the slippers and he asked a question to Henry that, why did you wear my slippers? Then, children, please turn to page number 44. Mrs. Slatter. Mrs. Slatter. Promptly, I told him to put them on to stretch them. They were the new and hard. Now, Henry, Mrs. Slatter snatches the slippers from Henry and gives them to Abel, who puts them on and sits in the armchair. So now Abel Merriweather, when he asked why Henry was wearing his slippers, then she was trying to give the answer. Who? Amelia is trying to give the answer. Mrs. Slatter or Amelia is one and the same. So she is trying to give the answer that, Daddy, I know those slippers are new and they are tied to your legs, to your feet. That's why I gave to my husband and asked him to stretch and make them loose so that you feel comfortable while wearing. And immediately she shouted at her husband, Come on, Henry, remove those slippers, she said. She brought the slippers and gave to her father. And wearing them, Mr. Abel Merriweather, the old man, sat in an armchair. Mrs. Jordan to Ben. Well, I don't call the delicate. Stepping into a dead man's shoes is such a haste. Victoria runs across to Abel and sits on the floor at his feet. So now Mrs. Jordan, that means Elizabeth was telling to her husband. What was she telling? See, this is so cheap that they have stolen the slippers of a dead man. What a dirty thing it is. I don't think that this is a delicate thing. Delicate means it's not a good thing. It's a very nasty thing that stealing the chappals of a dead man. That's what Mrs. Elizabeth told to her husband, that is Ben. And meanwhile, Victoria came near to her grandpa and sat at his legs. Victoria, Oh, Grandpa, I'm so glad you're not dead. Mrs. Slatter, in a vindictive whisper, Hold your tongue, Victoria. Abel, what's that? What's gone dead? And who's gone dead? Mrs. Slatter, loudly, Victoria says she's sorry about your head. Abel, Oh, thank you, Vicky, but I'm feeling better. Abel, Why, Ben, you are in mourning? And Lizzie too? And Amelia and Henry and little Vicky. Who's gone dead? It's someone in the family? He chuckles. So now, Victoria, the girl, came and sat at the feet of her grandpa and said, I'm very happy, Grandpa, that you're not dead. Then these kind of words irritated Mr. Abel Merriweather, and he was shocked and said, What? Who has gone dead? Who's dead here? Then immediately his daughter, that is Victoria's mother, Mrs. Slatter, she was trying to hide that, and she said, No, Daddy, she's not telling dead. She is saying about your head. You told that you have got a headache. That's why she said she's sorry for your headache. And then he said, Oh, thank you, Vicky. And now I'm feeling better. Now the old man has seen everybody. That is Elizabeth and her husband Ben, Amelia and her husband Mr. Henry, and their daughter Victoria. They were all in morning dress. I told you, like, they were all wearing morning dress because somebody dead in the family. They were all black. So that has brought doubt in the mind of Mr. Abel Merriweather, and he asked, Is there anybody in the family dead? Why are you all in morning dress? Then Mrs. Slatter, No one you know, father, a relation of Ben's. So Mrs. Slatter means Amelia. Again, Amelia is interrupting. Why she is interrupting every time? Because she is the one who predicted, and she was the one who misinterpreted that he was dead. By seeing her father sleeping in the bedroom, she thought that he was dead, and he gave the news. He passed the news to Elizabeth and her husband, and they came to see the dead father. But on the other side, what happened? He was not dead. She didn't check it properly, and he woke up and he came down and talking with them. That's why she is trying to hide her mistake. So again she interrupted and said, No, Daddy, you don't know who has died. There is somebody dead in Ben's family whom you don't know, she said. Then Abel, And what relation of Ben's? Mrs. Slatter, His brother. Ben, to Mrs. Slatter, Damn it, I never had one. Abel, Dear, and what was his name, Ben? Ben, at a loss, he crosses to the front of the table. Mrs. Slater right side of the table prompting Frederick, and Mrs. Jordan on the left side of the table prompting Albert. Alfred, Isaac. So now Abel, Isaac. And where did your brother Isaac die? In Australia. Then, well, I suppose you have only been waiting for me to begin tea. I'm feeling hungry, told Abel. So now she told that, Daddy, you don't know the person who was dead in the Ben's family. Then he said, okay, maybe I don't know, but who is that person? In what way he is related to Ben? Then immediately Amelia told that Mrs. Slater means Amelia only telling everything. So she was telling his brother. Then what was his name? Asked by Abel. Then he said, then he doesn't have any brother, right? Amelia committed that he had a brother and he was dead. So he said, damn it, I don't have any brothers, and this lady is telling that my brother got dead. He told that to Elizabeth, and he asked the name. Abel asked the name of whose brother? Ben's brother. So he don't have a brother. How can he tell the name of his brother? So he was thinking what name he has to tell. And on either side of Ben, one side we find Elizabeth and the other side we find Mrs. Amelia. They were prompting two different names. One is telling Frederick, one is telling Albert. So he mixed both the names like that, he said, and finally it has landed to a name called Isaac. Then Isaac, and where did you brother Isaac die? Then this was the question asked by Abel. Okay, your brother name is Isaac, and where did he die? Then he was what do we say? He's stammering and say is in Australia. Then Abel rising from his chair and said, well, I suppose you have only been waiting for me to begin tea. I'm feeling hungry. So he was getting up from his chair, from the armchair, and he was he was telling that I think you are all waiting for me to have your tea. So first let's go and have our tea because I'm hungry. Then Mrs. Slater taking up the kettle, I'll make tea. Abel, come along now, sit down and let's be jolly. Abel sits and head of the table facing spectators. So here what happened, he asked for tea and Amelia went inside along with the kettle to bring the tea, and they were all sitting and they wanted to have some fun time. Abel, suddenly recollecting, hey Amelia and Henry, what the devil did you mean by shifting my bureau out of my bedroom? Henry and Mrs. Slater are speechless. Do you hear me, Henry, Amelia? Then Mrs. Jordan, what bureau was that, father? Abel, why, my bureau, the one I brought. Then, look at page number 46, children. Mrs. Jordan, pointing to the bureau, was it the one, father? Ah, that's it. What's it doing here? And a pause. The clock on the mantelpiece strikes 6. Everyone looks at it. Drat me if that isn't my clock too. What the devil's been going on in this house? A slight pause. Ben, well, I'll be hanged. Mrs. Jordan, rising. I will tell you what's been going on in this house, father. Nothing short of robbery. So what happened? He suddenly saw the bureau which was brought from his room to the drawing room downstairs. So by seeing that, Abel Merriweather got shocked and surprised, and he asked Amelia and her husband Henry, what the devil has brought my bureau down here? That means who brought the bureau here? Why was it brought down? Then immediately Elizabeth caught the point and she said, what bureau you're talking about, father? Is that bureau? Then Abel said, yes, it's my bureau which I bought. It's my bureau. I bought this one long back. Then Elizabeth got surprised along with Ben. And immediately at that time, there was a mantelpiece. You have seen the mantelpiece, no? The wall clock, watch they have kept that was stolen from the father's room. So that was on the mantelpiece, and it was ringing 6 sounds. That means it was 6 o'clock, and the clock struck 6. Immediately everybody's attention turned that side, and he was also again shocked double time. Again, once again he was shocked by seeing that wall clock was also brought. I mean, not the wall clock, the clock has brought from his room. And he asked the same question. Oh my God, this is my clock. Why was it brought it down? Come on, Amelia and Henry, please answer my questions. Then now Elizabeth started her show. Daddy, you don't get confused, you don't worry. I will tell you what was happening in this home and who brought it down. Please give me some time. I will tell you the story of my dear sister and brother-in-law. See, it is nothing but a robbery. They have robbed your things. Opened by Elizabeth. And what's going to happen, we'll see in the next video. Thank you, children.